Hey everybody, it's Jessie, and just sharing with you some insights and things. And I know the lighting isn't the best in here. I know I have some great video friends that will say, your lighting's horrible today. I know it, but it's all good. And this is going to be a little funky in the video at times because my camera's going to get flipped around and things like that because I have some really kind of cool stuff that I want to show you. And those of you that know me know I've been on this unbelievable journey, which some of my friends, like Greg Freeman or somebody, would say, oh, that's just normal life for you, which it kind of is because I always have these things that seem to come up in my life. But for about the last 3 weeks, I've been in this amazing, wonderful, incredible space over a little shop called Ground Cover in Bridgeton, Maine, and working away and trying to regroup. And it's been a beautiful, wonderful space to regroup in. And part of that regrouping is what I'm going to show you today, because here comes the question: what do you do when you're living in your vehicle in the middle of Maine, in the middle of winter, and somebody rear ends you and you lose not only your vehicle, but your home, and everything gets tousled around inside of it, and you end up having to get into higher car payments than what you were in before and longer terms again. So all of these things, but I always believe it's up to us to find the pieces that generate a creativity, that bring together pieces in our life. And, I always wondered, because I've been doing some work at Home Depot and merchandising the last couple of years to help pay down some bills and get me through some rough spots and things like that. And thank you to everybody in the Sioux Falls Home Depot who was so patient with me learning how to do things like screw a nail into wood. Some really, really basic things. You might actually be impressed and not impressed at the same time when I show you this. But, Tila and Carrie and all you guys, you're just awesome. And I loved my time with you. And, that was amazing. So what do? You turn around and you learn how to build furniture. You learn how to regroup in a way. And I'm always restructuring in the van. And I think this is a piece of life, because all throughout life, we're always adjusting and restructuring, and we're turning things around, and we're working through things, and it gives us a chance to constantly refine what we're doing. And one of the big pieces that I had in the van is I really have to be careful that I'm using natural fibers and natural woods, and not just because I prefer all of the organic pieces and things like that, but because of health reasons, because of things that you deal with in a vehicle that you don't always have to deal with in a home. Because when you're in a vehicle, if you're using things like plastics and resins and things like that, it can become very toxic, especially, say, like in summertime when the weather heats up. And things are always having to adjust and readjust in these spaces. So I've been pondering around ideas in my head for a while, and of course, once the accident hit, it became a great opportunity to really do some greater creating, and being blessed with the space that I'm in now really gives me that opportunity. And yes, my hair looks a little funky because it's in a ponytail because I've been doing work today. But it gives us those regrouping opportunities. It gives us those chances when things are so-called destroyed in our life to rebuild in a way that makes us even more fulfilled, that connects us, that aligns us greater. And I'm always looking not only for the physical properties, but also the energetic properties. Well, one of the great things that I happen to be coded to is cedar and wood. And so here again, you have to be careful of some of those pieces, but it really has both energetic principles that are great. It's great grounding principles. It's great financial principles to it. It's great purification principles to it. So cedar for me actually is great because it's about being the alchemist, which is a big thing of what we're in right now in codes, is being the alchemist. And embracing that creative side of us. And anytime we generate and utilize our creative energy, we are aligning and tapping in with our soul self. We're aligning and tapping in with God. We're aligning and tapping in with our true nature. And that's a really, really powerful thing. And it's not always about everything being perfect, but it's about the creating process. It's about working with your hands. It's about being off of electronics. It's about doing things through your own self. And so I want to show you this little piece, because this is going to be going in the vehicle, and it's going to be amazing. And yes, it's dark in here, so I'm going to be flipping it around so you can get the light. I'm going to bend down a little bit next to it here. But I've created this great chest, and I'm going to flip the camera around so you can really see it and I can show you things. Okay, so this piece is done actually in a very simplistic style, because I like things that are simple. I like things that I can do on my own, and I actually had thought about having somebody create a piece for me. And then, of course, financially, with the accident and everything, some of the funds I had planned to use for that, I needed to use for lodging. So this is a really great thing. But what I did was I actually took a couple of simple crates. You know, you can get these from the hardware stores. You can get these from a lot of the fabric stores. And I've actually hooked those in together. So you can see right in here, there's actually just a little slide latch sort of thing that I did. Because when I'm traveling and I'm journeying around, I can't have things tilting over. And if I go upward in the vehicle, then it is going to turn things around, like things are going to go toppling, and I'm going to have a big mess in the vehicle. So things have to be really, really secured in there. And then what I did is also, because things that I've had stacked up a little higher before, if they're not secured in some way, even just a little bit, then what happens is they go sliding all over the vehicle. So one of the things I really wanted was I really wanted to work with cedar, because with cedar, it naturally repels a lot of insects. It naturally repels moths and things like that. So it takes better care of any paper items you might have, any clothing items you might have, these sorts of things. So when I started constructing this, I picked up 4 of the crates, and then I got some cedar planking. I had those cut down to the sizing that I needed for this piece. And this is going to actually fill the whole back of the new van, which I'm so excited. It's so nice to drive a van without holes in it. I have to say that. And this gives me a lot of functional pieces, because actually just in this bottom part down here, from here down, just in the one bottom crate size, I can actually fit almost half of what I had stored under my bed, making it more accessible. Crystals and things that I want to start using for some things, gemstones that I want to start using for some grids and some events. Those are going to be able to be all accessible in here now really easily. Things that I don't use, I can tuck away into the side portions here of the crates. So things that I almost never access, I can put into there, which is really awesome. Then we move to the top part. And what I did with this was I actually did cedar across here. This is a cedar planking. But then I put the hinges on so that these pieces can now flip up like this. So it makes all of this accessible. This becomes a storage area, a shelving area. So for clothing, this is going to be really great, because I won't have my clothing toppling all over. I won't have it loose in all these various little spots like that. And I created 2 of these. And I created 2 of them because, as you can see, I actually have a shelf in here. And this is a cedar lined, or a cedar planking shelf. This is not a lot of weight. So, I mean, this is a thin planking. So if you were actually going to build something like this for a home and you really wanted a lot of weight, you'd probably want to use actual boards. Now, the red cedar boards are what's the aromatic, which is what I've used here, versus the white cedar, which is a non-aromatic. And then I just simply got some shelf braces. I think you can kind of see that in there. some shelf braces, and I put in to create the support for the shelf. And then on the inside, what I did was I lined it. Those are all cedar planks that I lined it with, the shorter pieces that came off of the pieces that I needed for the longer pieces. So this is really fun because now I have accessibility to things easily without things falling all over. And I've actually done the same design. It's on both sides. So I'm able to access it from either the inside or the outside of the vehicle, which is really nice. And then this top portion, which I just used some really simple little nailing to create this piece up here, did the cedar lining on top, and then these vertical pieces up here so that I can use this for a variety of things. I can use it for a shoe area, to keep my shoes in so that they're accessible and easy. I can use it for bedding things, extra blankets that I'm not using, say, in summertime. So there's a variety of options that I can go with. And again, this isn't anything heavy duty. It's just enough to keep things from sliding off and sliding out. So some people have been asking me, I'm kind of pulling back here so you can see it, what I've been working on, and that's what I've been working on. And I want to mention, you know, when we get into these things, one of the big pieces, and I'm going to step back out, is that we can get really wrapped up in this isn't perfect, you know, and along the way I'm thinking, I probably should have done it this way. I probably should have done this section that way. And all through life we tend to do these things. I mean, we can even see I've got a bigger gap over here than I've got over here. And we get wrapped up in this perfection piece. Oh, it's not perfect. It's, you know, and therefore it's horrible. But that's not the case. When we look at what being perfect is about, it's actually about learning, and it's actually about wisdom, and it's actually about growing our wisdom. And when we get wrapped up in this, a lot of times what happens is people go into the distortion space of perfect, which means that they believe that they are less than if they are not perfect. So somebody could say, well, this is a worthless piece of furniture because it's not perfectly done. You know, there's all these flaws, and this doesn't sit flush, and this doesn't do that, and there's a bigger gap here than there is there, and so on and so forth. And yet that's not true. I mean, it absolutely is not true. This is a highly functional piece, and it's a beautiful piece, and it's full of amazing energy that is going to be a huge asset for me. And so this perfection concept, the only true perfect there is wisdom. And, you know, again, I'm kind of, you know, rolling through some of this. The perfection piece itself actually is about competition. So perfect is about total wisdom, whereas perfection, and where we become focused on perfection, is about competing. And we know when we get into the competition patterns, all that does is pull us out of spirit. So that's really not very wise, is it? So it's it's losing of the wisdom, actually, when we step into that competition. And really what we want to look at is, you know, look at what I've created and look at what I've learned in the process. Not from this ego standpoint, not from I've got to have it a certain way, but realizing how perfect it really is, even with all the flaws and imperfections, so to say. So, you know, in all of these things, it would have been very easy for me to say, there's no way for me to figure this out. There's no way for me to create this. And I think too often, if you're like a lot of people out there in the world, that you get this distorted vision. And I'm flipping around again. You get this distorted concept and this distorted vision of I'm not perfect. You get this distorted vision that I'm not good enough. You get this distorted vision of what things have to be, or the I can't do this. And in reality, we can. And sometimes these situations, we don't realize how much we've learned along the way. And I think building this piece has been an amazing journey, and I still have some pieces to create to get everything back in the vehicle and to get set up into this very functional way. Because when you're in such a small space, the smaller the space, the more organized and the more functional everything has to be. And I think for me, as well as a lot of people, it's getting out of some of these patterns, and you don't always get a chance to realize how much you've learned until you start to open up your creativity and you start to open up that potential and to start to put some of the pieces together and to start to say, you know what, I actually do know how to do this. I actually do know now how to hammer a nail into a piece of wood. I can actually screw something in. It may not be straight yet in every aspect, but I can get it functional. And I can do these pieces enough to work. And, you know, I've got some wood left over, and I've only spent about $135 on everything. So if I was to go and buy a piece like that that was so-called perfect, I would be spending like $500 for that. So it really comes down to these different concepts, but it's so much more rewarding, and it's got a personal connection for me. And being able to bring that personal connection into the new van is an amazing piece, because even in creating this piece, I was very guided by Orly. All the codes kept coming up. Things kept coming up to dimensions that were aligned with my code energy pattern. And that was really powerful. So I think to myself, how perfect was that? You know, how perfect were these dimensions that I ended up working with? And how perfect is this coming together? So very exciting. Anyways, I wanted to share that little piece with you, share some of these thoughts with you, and I hope you guys are having an amazing day. I know here in Maine, we're snowed in today, which is why I got a chance to work on this today and bring a lot of this together. And of course, there's going to be some physical exercise shoveling later and some other pieces like that, because we're in with over a foot of snow here right now, but and growing. So anyways, that's what's happening here. And whether you got sunny, beautiful weather, snowy weather, I hope you're enjoying it no matter what. Make the best of it. And that's the real key, is taking your resources, making the best of what you have, making the best of where your skill set is, and loving that. Loving that, whether it's straight, even, uneven, loving it. Take care, everybody, and I'll see you later.